Welcome back to What It's Really Like to Be an Entrepreneur. I'm Vincent A. Lanci.
And I'm Wilson Bautista Jr.
I'm excited to launch another episode for you all and bring on another guest with tons of firsthand experience. That's the sound of you investing in your future. Let's go. Whether you're already an entrepreneur or looking to start your journey tomorrow, or are just someone who needs a little extra motivation to get through the day, this is the perfect podcast for you. Each week, I will interview a different entrepreneur from across the globe. I will continue to offer episodes in all industries to provide you with many different perspectives. You never know which motivational journey will inspire you most. Each guest will take you through their story and help you learn from their successes and lessons learned. If you enjoyed today's episode, please rate the show 5 stars and continue listening by subscribing. My guest on the show today is someone I have known for a few years and met through constantly networking. Due to COVID, the last time we saw each other was at PodFest in Orlando. This entrepreneur embodies the never give up mentality and has incredible insight from his endeavors. He has now become a notable keynote speaker across his industry. He is the CEO and founder of June Cyber, which provides cybersecurity advisory and management consulting services to small and medium businesses. I'm excited for you all to learn his journey, so allow me to now introduce Wilson Bautista Jr. Wilson, thanks for coming on the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. Appreciate being here.
Absolutely. Would you mind please introducing yourself to our listeners and previewing your story a bit without giving away too much of your entrepreneurial journey?
Okay, so just first things first, I was in the military. I was a United States Marine, so I started doing that in 2001 before September 11th happened, and I ended up getting off of active duty around 2013 as an officer. I was a captain in the United States Marines, and then I switched over to the National Guard, and then retired out of the National Guard. I do cybersecurity, and that's something that I really love to do because it really matches up well with being in the military, is that you have an adversary, and then you have the folks that are trying to stop the adversary. So it's really neat. And one of the things that I also like to do is I like to help veterans out because when we were in the service, you were constantly mentoring. You had a lot of mentees, and it's something that's really, really important to me. So I've created an emerging nonprofit called the Cyber Ohana Project, which we're supporting veterans explore careers in cybersecurity, as well as providing them a community so they could work with each other and build each other up so they could each step in the industry more confidently.
That's amazing. How recent is this endeavor?
So we are about 3 months in. So we had a crowdfunding campaign.
Oh, awesome.
For about, a couple of months, and it's worked good. We were able to kick off our first cohort, and we're just moving along, man. It's great.
Well, congratulations. That's awesome. But now let's get into the big 5, Wilson. On each episode, my guest and I go over these 5 questions to help you, the listeners, learn what it's really like to be an entrepreneur. You ready to go?
Yeah, let's do it.
Great. So when did you realize that you either weren't happy with what you were doing or that you needed some kind of change to truly start this entrepreneurial journey? Please share your story.
Okay, so I've always been naturally a rebel, right? I think that when I was, before I joined the military, I would probably consider myself a punk kid, and I needed some discipline. And the reason why I wanted discipline is because I just did whatever I wanted to do, and I just needed some consistency, and I said, okay, well, let's just go to the hardest service. And they're gonna beat it out of me, and I'm gonna get some discipline in my body, and that worked, right? And then you sort of get indoctrinated into an organization, into the military culture, where you're following orders, you're doing what you need to do. And then I realized, as I was getting older and more experienced, that I was part of a machine, right? And part of the machine, you have all these gears that are running, and you're responsible for one of those cogs in the wheel. And I started looking at wheels and saying, hey, that's not a wheel, that's a square. And they would tell me to shut up and say, keep on running like a hamster in a wheel. And then you say, oh, hey, keep on running faster. Well, there's a hole in this wheel. It's like, nope, just keep on running faster. And then I kind of felt like I was, I guess, a statistic. So it was just like, hey, you're not working out, the wheel is fine. Just keep on running. And I realized, okay, that was the first point where I said, okay, I'm not happy with this. So I left active duty and said, I'm going to do something else. So I went to corporate America, and it felt like almost the same thing, but it was a little different. And I had opportunities to run a global information security division for a manufacturing company. And that was great. And it provided a lot of opportunity because I was building things.
Yeah.
But then I got another opportunity at a startup where they said, hey, we want you to build our IT infrastructure, and we want you to build our information security program from the ground up. Perfect entrepreneur,
Yeah.
thing, right? So it's just like, okay, you make it your own. But then then the problem happens is like when you want to make a decision, you have to go through God and everybody to get approval for everything.
Yeah.
So and then the actual relationship with the management wasn't very well. They were kind of toxic. So that wasn't good for my mental health. And I said, all right, I want to do something on my own. I want to build something on my own. I want to call it mine. I want to be able to make decisions. I want to be able to make an impact where I think is important. And so I started my consulting business, and I started this emerging nonprofit. And I've been doing a lot of talks. I've been I wrote a book. I've put some training together to support the nonprofit. A lot of cool things have been going on. However, I would say I'm not sure how successful I would have been if COVID
Yep.
COVID didn't happen because
Yeah.
it's been challenging. But if this is like the worst it's ever going to get from being like a business owner in a pandemic, then I'm like, all right, I think I could make it.
Well, now that you've been out here, Wilson, on your own for a year, celebrating your 1 year anniversary, what are one or two of the most difficult parts of being an entrepreneur for you?
I think that one of the things that I had to realize is that I can't handle everything.
Right.
Right. And when you're owning a business, you're your own marketer, your own recruiter, you're the one that's trying to close deals. You're trying to advertise for yourself, and at the same time, you have to do the work.
Mm-hmm.
And not only that, is like I have a family, right? So I have to be able to spend time with my family, and that was one of the benefits of being able to work by myself, is that I could call the
Right. Yeah.
shots.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it's just like, hey, you're working so much that you're not going to be able to help your kids do their homework or tuck them in.
All
So
right.
it's being able to balance that. It's the time management of it. And yeah, you can't take it off on your own, so you have to learn how to delegate. So I hired a virtual assistant,
Right.
right? So I was able to do that. And another thing that I've learned is that along with not being able to do everything all at once, you're not going to know everything.
That's a big
Right.
one. It's
Right. So it's just like I was sitting there thinking to myself, I'm like, I need to learn how to build a website because it's easy, right? You just drag and drop boxes and
yeah.
blocks and everything. And I'm just like, yeah, easy, easy, easy. And then it come to it, it's just like, well, you have SEO to think about, and you have all of these other. I'm like, I don't have the time. I don't have the time to do that. So
Mm-hmm.
delegate, delegate,
Well, you have to
delegate,
learn a
delegate.
whole, even though people say, oh, it's just a website, it's something that's just new. You have to learn something completely new. And my website over the last 6-7 years, I mean, it's constantly evolving. You have to maintain it. You got to update it. It's, as you said, very time consuming. But before you brought up time management, let's talk about the time management you had to start to grow within yourself when you were still in corporate, but starting June Cyber.
Oh my
Because
gosh.
you had about an 8-month year window there when you started this company, right? If I
Yeah.
recall.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, So when I first started the Bautista Group, now DBA June Cyber, it was in February of 2019, and um, it was just kind of a thought, right? I just wanted to build it, and then when I said, okay, I'm done with the corporate world, is when I said, oh my gosh, there's a lot of things I need to do because I got to put food on the table. So
Hmm.
you start thinking, it's just like, all right, I know that I got to do my job, but also at the same time, I've got to figure out how the heck I'm gonna make money as soon as I leave corporate life. So there I am trying to, go on Upwork and try to find freelancing gigs, try to update my resume, update the way that I do contracts, trying to find templates and everything. So it took time, and a little bit of time here and there dedicated to my business helped me balance um, my responsibilities to the organization that I was currently with,
Hmm.
to the organization that I wanted to build, and as well as to my family.
Yeah, I love that insight. Wilson, looking back over the course of your life, what is one of the greatest failures you've experienced or lessons learned? And what did it teach you? Why is it still stuck with you all the way up until today?
So I would say one of the greatest failures that I've ever had is I didn't comply with my boss, and that caused me to end my active service in the Marines. Right. And I was so upset. And the reason why I said it was a failure is because um, I just I just didn't do what I needed to do to make him happy, right? To make this person happy when he was completely incompetent. So my failure is that I didn't want to follow an incompetent leader, and my performance evaluation showed, um, and I was treated as such by his peers, by his subordinates, and it impacted me mentally. So I got PTSD
Hmm.
from being in that kind of environment, and on top of that, we were in a combat zone. So yeah, it taught me that sometimes you don't have to you don't have to run that hamster wheel, right? You could say that it's broken, and you have to have the integrity and you have to have the intestinal fortitude to say, no, that's not how it works. And then be able to deal with the consequences of that. And for me, it was a lot of heartache. Um, and it was a lot of self-reflection. It's taken me years to overcome.
Hmm.
And I'm still overcoming it. But that great failure of me getting out of the service has led me to this point in my life where I'm just like, dude, I'm on my own. I do my own thing, and I'm making an impact, a positive impact on people that I care about. And if I was still in the service and just sucking it up and just doing what I was told, then I truly wouldn't be happy. So I would say that that failure led to something else. And here I am a bunch of years later saying, hey, this is where I am. Hey, this is what it is.
It comes up on some episodes where you try to do too much, you're really deterring yourself from the end prize. I was a finance major, MBA, so I was doing financial advising while also doing real estate, while juggling 5 different jobs, just trying to make it work. And I was really just taking myself further away from hitting certain goals in this line of work. So I
Hmm.
can definitely relate to you, as I'm sure will resonate with many listeners that are tuning in. But if you could choose to have a conversation and learn from any entrepreneur, Wilson, dead or alive, who are we going with?
I'd probably say Steve Jobs,
Yeah,
right?
let's talk
And
about it.
I'm Yeah, so Steve Jobs, known to be like a kind of a jerk, and but at the same time, later on in his life, he realized that all the money in the world doesn't mean anything if you don't have your life, right? There's a few quotes, and everybody kind of knows about his life. He kind of got shafted, and then he came back, made the Apple come back. I think there's a lot of lessons learned to come back and take over a company that ousted you,
Mm,
right? And not take it personal, and then take it to where it's been today, right? There's something about that in his character that is just like, For me right now, I said, yeah, you kicked me out, you fired me. Yeah, screw you. I don't want to be here anymore. Why would I come back? So I would like to understand that and the way in what was going on in his mind. Also, like from the very beginning with his Apple journey, is like, how do you take it, right? And you take this idea from your garage with a couple of friends and make it this huge deal. And he's apparently had the gift of the gab, right? He's able to talk, and I'm like, how do you do that, right? And then later on in his life is to ask him some of the questions like, hey, what would you have done differently, right? And it's not from like a complete like monetary standpoint, like being
Hmm.
he's rich, got so much money. It's just like, now that you have all of this stuff, what would you have really done differently? Would you have maybe it's spend more time with your family?
Hmm.
Would have brought balance to you? Those are kind of the questions that I would be asking him.
Yeah, obviously Steve Jobs has been chosen a few times, but that's the first time that perspective has been given. So I do appreciate that. But to take it a step further, where would you have this meeting if you had to pick a place for it to go down?
Let's see. If I were to have a meeting with somebody, I'm just really chilled out, man. So it's either at a bar that has really good craft brew, or I'm drinking some good wine at some vineyard somewhere. So just to have a conversation, chill out, relax, no
Mhm.
pressure. That's where I'd probably do it at.
I love that. Well, let's look into the future here, Wilson. We're going to look 1 year and 5 years out. Where do you see yourself in all of your entrepreneurial endeavors 1 year from today?
Okay, so what I would really like to do with June Cyber is to create a managed security service provider that offers cutting edge, bleeding edge technology for small to medium businesses. And that's still like a challenge because there's always a cost perspective,
Uh-huh.
um, for number one, acquiring this technology from other companies that you possibly can resell from. But then once you even acquire that, is to be able to get small and medium business folks to realize that cybersecurity does impact them. So I would like to see June Cyber be like de facto one of the best in this area
Hmm.
at first, in the first year, to support small and medium businesses and even nonprofits.
Hmm.
From a nonprofit standpoint,
Yeah,
with
let's talk about
cyber,
that. Definitely. Yeah.
yeah. So the Cyber Ohana project, and we're talking about this at a good time, is that right now we're supporting veterans. So for 2021, we want to support underserved communities, Black, Brown communities, LGBTQI, women, folks that have been impacted by ageism and COVID
Hmm.
in different ways. We want to expand our clientele to help them not only explore careers in cybersecurity, right, but also explore careers in IT and data science. So in the next year, we plan to increase the scope of our programming and increase the scope of our impact to different groups. So now, taking that from a 5-year standpoint, we want to be just as big as some of the other veteran organizations that are supporting veterans nationally. We want to take what we have and support folks globally,
Ooh,
right?
yeah,
So
like that ambition.
yeah, so we're already talking to a few veterans that are from other countries, and they also have similar ideas. So it's just about kind of putting that roadmap together and doing that. That's what we're looking at from a veteran's perspective, but obviously it'll take time to ramp up other groups of folks that we want to support, and we really want to get that done, or at least point to it within the next 5 years. And then with June Cyber, with managed security services provider services, is that we want to be able to grow nationally as well. Again, it just takes time. We need to get
Hmm.
our rhythm, and we need to get our message across, and it needs to resonate with the right folks.
I like that. I like everything you're doing. Please keep me in the loop so I can help you promote and market it. I know one thing, I'm not a veteran, but I do know veterans have each other's back. So I think you'll have great success with this project. And I think it is a great time to get into the spotlight story. On each episode, I share an entrepreneurial journey to inspire our listeners, and I would love your take on it. As I have someone on the show who is in the cyber IT world, I will now introduce the entrepreneurial journey of one of the most famous in that field and star of the hit show Shark Tank in Robert Herjavec. Herjavec has built and sold many IT companies and is currently the CEO of the Herjavec Group, which is a cybersecurity company he created. As I mentioned, he is also a Shark Tank investor on ABC's popular show. I would like to start with a powerful quote from Robert when I was younger, I didn't know that people could start a business. And I always say now that if I knew what I know now, I would have dreamed bigger. Many complain about adversity, but listen to this. He is not even a first-generation immigrant, but is a guy off the boat, as he said in the article. His father escaped jail in a communist country and took his mother and him to Halifax when he was just 8 years old. His family arrived with literally one suitcase. The transition was very difficult for him, finding motivation in the struggle he had in adapting to a new country as a kid. He also had a challenging time coming to reality with the way of life in North America as he experienced a difference in economic classes for the very first time. Wilson, what do you like best about this story?
So I think that, like, when we talk about adversity, right, the cards are stacked up against you. Um, it really brings out that, hey, fight or flight syndrome. It's either you're going to accept the situation that you're in and then just say, I can't get any better, or I'm going to fight to better my situation. And Robert obviously has done that. If he's fresh off the boat, he first experienced economic classes for the first time.
Crazy, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, it's just like, hey, I don't want to deal with this, right? So I don't want my kids to deal with this, or whoever he cares about. So he is. It sounds like he just continued to build and build and build. Let's see what it says here is when I was younger, I didn't know that people could start a business, and I always say now that if I knew what I know now, I would have dreamed bigger.
Uh-huh.
Right. And it's just like, hey, man, you've done a lot of cool stuff already. It's just like, man, how much could you dream bigger? And I think that really kind of it kind of also resonates with me. It's just like, hey, how big can I really go?
How big
right?
can we do it, man? Yeah.
How big can I really go? And it really be realistic, because there's there's some cliche phrases, right? It's like, shoot for the stars, and wherever you might land on the moon. It's just like, all right, cool. That's really nice. But like, let's put some real targets out there.
Exactly.
Right. Some real targets out there, put some real milestones and work towards those milestones. And as you get to each milestone, you look at that target, you say, hey, yeah, I could go a little bit farther. I could go a little bit farther. And yeah, I think it resonates here. It's just like, if I didn't know what I knew now, like he wishes he has more time. Right, to put in those milestones and continue pushing that target farther and farther and farther up. And that's what we need to continue to do as entrepreneurs.
I love that answer, Wilson. Thank you. And thank you so much for coming on the show today. I know our listeners are going to see all the value in your episode today. I loved how you alluded to this hamster wheel over and over. And then one of your greatest failures, reassuring the listeners, just have the confidence to follow what you want to do, and it will follow. I love the reason, like I said, for the Steve Jobs selection. And as far as the 5-year plan, I think both companies, especially with your ability to network and the veteran reach, I think have a really big potential to grow. So I'm glad I got you on the show now. But it is time for the last word. And I also do this on my other podcast series, A Mental Health Break with Vincent A. Lanci, too, because I want my listeners to really get to know my guests. Is there something that you would like to share with everybody listening on that we did not get to talk about yet today?
Yeah, so I think one of the things that we need to do as entrepreneurs is actually take a step back from putting your nose to the ground and grinding and appreciate what you have around you, because it's really easy to lose touch of what you have currently around you, because we're so focused on our goals, we're so focused on meeting our targets, we're so focused on revenue that sometimes we just need to take a step back and take a walk in the park and look at the scenery and just say, hey, I'm at this spot. Collect yourself and get on with the next target. But take 5 minutes a day. 5 minutes a day just to appreciate what you have, and it'll do a lot of difference.
Yeah, practicing the feeling of being grateful is very good, especially for your mental health as well. But would you mind now please sharing your professional social media website, ways for our listeners to follow your endeavors, request your services?
Yeah, sure. If you want to follow me on social media, you could do so on LinkedIn. Just find Wilson Bautista Jr. If you want to look at what I'm doing for the nonprofit, go to cyberohanaproject.org. And if you want to find out more what we're doing from the managed security service provider standpoint, go to juncyber.com. Another thing that we also didn't get to mention is I also have a podcast that's
That's right.
dedicated to developing security leaders. So it's called DevSec Lead. So go to DEVSECLEAD.com. Check it out. It's a lot of fun. We get a lot of different folks that are talking about soft skill development and all of these touchy subjects that us as security professionals tend to forget. But it's great.
And it's social media time for the show, and we're on whichever platform you like to use. We're at What It's Really Like to Be an Entrepreneur on LinkedIn, at Your Favorite Morning Podcast on Instagram and Facebook, and at Podcasts by Lanci on Twitter, so you have updates from this show and a mental health break with Vincent A. Lanci. If you check out my books, DM me. I would love to hear from you all. We have Mr. Lanci Talks Mental Health, Left for Dead, A Story of Redemption, and How to Transform Your Mindset When the Norm is Changed. All are on my website now, which is vincentalanci.com. And as always, I will end the show with a quote that inspired me and know it will for you too. This one is from Robert Herjavec, the entrepreneur from today's Spotlight story. The best advice I would give to somebody is, don't ever start a business that you are not incredibly and deeply passionate about. It is hell, and you will spend more hours with your business than you will spend with your family and friends. You will have horrible days that will make you want to quit and question everything you ever learned. Along that journey, if you don't absolutely love what you do, there is no way you will survive. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you all on the next episode of What It's Really Like to Be an Entrepreneur.